We're ready to go ahead and get started. I want to start off. My name is Larry Gasteiger. I'm the Executive Director of WIRES. I want to welcome all of you here to the WIRES spring meeting. We're going to try and muscle through despite the harsh and inhospitable weather we're subjected to here today, so we'll try and make the best of it. But the good news is we have a terrific program for everyone with some fantastic speakers. But before we get started, we originally had talked to Commissioner LaCerte about possibly having him as our keynote speaker. He was not able to make it because of a scheduling issue, but fortunately we have a fantastic speaker in his stead. But he did offer to do a welcome video since he wasn't going to be able to make it here. And we do have him scheduled for our summer meeting coming up in Philadelphia, so hopefully we'll get to see him in person there. But before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and have them roll the video from Commissioner David LaCerte at FERC.
Good morning. Good morning. First and foremost, I want to apologize to you for not being there in person today. While I had originally intended to be with you in Santa Barbara, my duties have unfortunately kept me here on the East Coast. I want to begin by thanking each of you for your dedication to ensuring that America's electrical grid is safe, reliable, and resilient. Our nation is at an unprecedented moment as we look to meet our growing demand for energy. This growth must be met with solutions that are not only swift but ingenious. Meeting our nation's growing energy demand is a profound responsibility and unprecedented opportunity. Through the promotion of smart investment in transmission planning, we are able to provide modern transmission solutions that will protect the ratepayers we serve from unjust rates. As technology leaps forward, FERC is seizing this opportunity, working to instill clear and fair regulations and precedent that will support our rapid pace of advancement. Since joining the Commission in October of last year, we have issued a landmark order directing PJM to establish transparent rules to facilitate service to large loads. We have approved SPP's high-impact large load proposal that establishes new study processes for large loads that will expedite load interconnection and protect consumers. We have acted upon dozens of individual utility filings regarding large loads that will impact customers from the West Coast all the way to the Carolinas. In addition, we're actively monitoring new efforts to accelerate large load energy scales while protecting consumers. This includes the President's Ratepayer Protection Pledge and the vital work being done by the National Energy Dominance Council and the United States Department of Energy. And although not directly in the bailiwick of WIRES, we're undertaking this work that needs to improve our process for liquid natural gas, for pipelines, and for hydropower licensing procedures. Yet there is still more work to be done. As you are surely aware, after taking office in October, the Secretary of Energy released an ANOPR directing the Commission to consider potential reforms to ensure the timely interconnection of large loads to the transmission system. At our recent April meeting, the Commission voted to issue notice of our intent to act on that ANOPR. The Commission stated that we will address the problems discussed in the ANOPR by the end of June 2026, in a manner that is quick, efficient, and legally durable. In the end, our goal is simple: to protect and ensure fair rules exist, allowing transmission customers to serve large loads while simultaneously ensuring just and reasonable rates for the American families and businesses. I'm eager to continue working with you to achieve that goal. I hope the next time to see you, it will be in person. Please keep in mind that the American people are counting on us to succeed, and I look forward to seeing everyone in Philadelphia.
All right, so he's going to be here in Philadelphia, even though he wasn't able to make it here today, but we were really lucky to get, as our keynote speaker, the Honorable Katie Jereza from DOE. She is the Assistant Secretary for DOE's Office of Electricity, and she's been in that role since October 14th of 2025, and this is her second stint at the Department of Energy. She has more than 30 years of experience in the energy, water, and manufacturing industries. She's previously served as the Corporate Vice President for EPRI, and then prior to that, she had worked at EEI, Energetic Incorporated, and the Maryland Department of Environment's Water Supply Program, among other roles in the private sector as well. She's a graduate of Loyola University and Virginia Tech, and we're very pleased to have her here today. She's going to speak for 10-15 minutes, give some opening remarks, and then we're going to open it up to the audience for questions. So I want you to really start thinking, in the meantime, of some great questions to ask the Assistant Secretary, because this is a fantastic opportunity to hear what she has to say on transmission and other issues that they're working on at the Department of Energy and the Office of Electricity. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Katie Jereza.
The push to build more power lines and build them fast has never been more urgent. At the U.S. Department of Energy's Office of Electricity, we've heard that loud and clear. America needs to move more power to more communities more efficiently and without passing unnecessary costs to families. And you've made your priorities absolutely unmistakable. Less process, less delays, more results. On that, we agree. I see some nodding heads. Because red tape doesn't keep the lights on, and it certainly doesn't build wires. And delays in large-scale transmission don't just slow projects. It slows job creation, economic growth, and it affects our national security, including our competitiveness to lead the world in AI. So today, I want to walk you through our strategy to see you through this moment. And 3 OE efforts that work together to ensure North America has the generation and grid capacity it needs to meet growing demand affordably, reliably, and securely. But first, Larry Gasteiger, members of WIRES, thank you for inviting me to be here today. It is an honor to be here on behalf of the U.S. Department of Energy's Office of Electricity and stand here with you, the power companies that run our nations. You stand at the center of one of the most critical questions facing our energy future today. How are we going to build the grid fast enough, affordably enough, and smart enough to meet this moment? So in its most recent long-term reliability assessment, the North American Electric Reliability Corporation found that the summer peak demand could rise by more than 220 gigawatts in the next 10 years. That's a 69% jump from last year's projection. And I heard in Texas that even that's off, like it should be even higher. And the peak winter demand is expected to grow by more than 250 gigawatts. Demand is rising, threats are intensifying, and new generation is coming on at unprecedented speeds. So the question isn't whether change is coming, it's whether our systems can keep pace. So because we cannot avoid this moment, we cannot move around it, we can't move over it, we can't move under it, but we can move through it and address it. And to do that, the first thing we must do is modernize the federal permitting system. Our coordinated interagency transmission authorizations permits, our SCIT program, creates a unified, transparent federal permitting pathway so that transmission can come online faster and at lower costs. Through SCIT, DOE now acts as the lead agency for all federal environmental permits, provides one coordinated schedule, and this should deliver clearer, more predictable timelines. So for decades, inconsistencies and delays have slowed transmission projects. So SCIT confronts these barriers head on. But coordination alone doesn't move steel. Authority must become acceleration. So that's why last year we launched the Speed to Power initiative, an initiative that shortens the development timeline for both transmission and generation. So Speed to Power ensures the US has the grid capacity needed to compete globally, power AI innovation, and meet surging load, all while protecting affordability and reliability. If speed to power is the engine, spark is the ignition point. It's the moment when advanced technologies move from blueprint onto the grid. Our spark funding opportunity, Speed to Power through accelerated reconductoring and key advanced transmission technology upgrades, is a $1.9 billion investment opportunity to upgrade existing transmission infrastructure with modern, high-performance alternatives. So it strengthens the grid using existing structures, existing rights-of-way, and proven advanced transmission technologies. So Spark delivers what America needs now, a capacity boost to reduce congestion, lower costs, and improve reliability and security. So Spark means more megawatts you can move through the grid. SCIT, Speed to Power, Spark. These are not isolated efforts. They are part of a deliberate strategy grounded in the Office of Electricity's mission to stabilize, optimize, and grow the electricity system so that the grid delivers affordable, reliable, and secure energy to all Americans. Our strategic plan identifies 5 critical challenges: scaling for new demand, delivering affordability, modernizing for reliability, achieving security and resilience, and advancing supply chain security. And it makes today's priority unmistakable: streamlining federal permitting and adding new generation and load faster onto the grid. So SCIT maps the way, Speed to Power supercharges the work, and Spark opens the road. Together, these efforts shape the modern grid Americans will rely on for decades. But even the strongest strategy isn't as powerful as the partners who bring it to life. And wire members are essential. You operate some of the largest, most interconnected systems in the world. You maintain reliability in some of the most demanding regions. And you balance regulatory, financial, and community priorities every single day. So we see you. And I assure you, these efforts will help see you through. We coordinate so you can deploy. We streamline so you can deliver. So come on through, explore our programs, reach out to us. We design these tools for your success. Because I am more than a public servant, I am a servant leader. So come on in, the door is open. As demand accelerates and opportunities grow, the decisions we make over the coming years will define the grid for decades. A 21st century economy cannot run on a 20th century system. The time to act is narrowing, and Spark is one of those opportunities to help close that gap. And this administration, through DOE's leadership, is committed to building the grid America needs at the speed America requires. Energy shaped our past, it anchors our present, and it will define our future. That future must be affordable, reliable, it must be secure, and it will be electric. So, if the drumbeat to build more wires and build them faster, our response must be just as urgent, just as clear, and just as strong. Because the truth is simple. We cannot slow demand, we cannot pause life, and we certainly can't wish away the future. But we can build the grid to meet it. And we can help you see it through. That is our responsibility. That is our opportunity. And this is our moment. We can build a modern, affordable, reliable grid that the people deserve. So let's move, let's build, and let's deliver the energy future that all people require. So, thank you. Yeah.
Well, great. Well, great. Thank you very much for those remarks. They were fantastic. We've got a lot of really sharp people in the room who I know would like to ask you some questions, but I'm going to exercise executive director privilege and ask the first question before I turn it over. So start thinking about what you'd like to ask the assistant secretary. One of the questions I had is, so a lot of us, our background is really coming more from the FERC perspective on a lot of these issues. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about what the interaction and coordination is between the Office of Electricity and FERC on some of these issues that you talked about, and how are the two working together to try to resolve some of these issues?
Well, that's a great question. We are working together at many different levels. So when I got confirmed, I was lucky enough to have the chair at the time, Commissioner Rosner and Commissioner C, come to my confirmation. So I felt like we started off with a good kickstart. We have the 403 authority where the secretary can say, hey, FERC, work on that ANOPR that the commissioner mentioned. But really, the boots on the ground, when the people are engaging with each other, that's how we move it forward. So I worked with Cal on some wildfire initiatives, and I won't steal his thunder, but I think that worked out just from the very start. We planned it out, figured it out. We also have detailees from FERC implanted at DOE, and so we're really trying to find as many ways as we can where DOE has more room to think about innovative solutions. Not that FERC isn't innovative, it's just that we can test them out a bit more, and then they can think about how they can apply them to the regulatory and the market environment. So thanks for that.
Any questions from everyone?
I'll walk around a little bit just to mix it up.
Thanks for being here and for your comments, really appreciate it. Stuart Nackmius from Con Edison Transmission. My question, really appreciate your focus on siting and the need to sort of coordinate federal siting. But I did notice very specific on federal, and a lot of the siting challenges are with coordination at the state level too. And I'm just curious, how are you thinking about coordinating with states so that we can really speed the siting process along and get the projects built?
Oh, sure. So our authority really resides in the federal space, And just wrangling those and getting that coordinated schedule is a super big challenge. But we have a whole team that can focus at the state level in coordination as well. So we have programs where we fund technical assistance to provide training, because we know at the state level you have some turnover, so that they can have more informed decisions. And we also help with modeling. So if they need modeling support to think about the different trade-offs, we provide that support as well. So we have, they call it the Formula Grants Program, in which that supports the states with their deployment. And then there's also their cybersecurity, siting planning. It's hard to keep up with all the new technologies as well. So we're trying to work very closely with the states on that.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think it's really critical to sort of move things along.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great overview. I'm very much behind you. I'm Tom Acuna. I'm with Stantec. And the regulatory relief that you're proposing, we support. I've done many transmission lines, done the licensing, permitting. And it always gets held up. I know you know that. But it seems like the National Environmental Policy Act is the Bible of the environmental life here for us. Mm-hmm. Is it possible from your side to enact special legislation for utilities and energy production, specifically for that, so you don't change NEPA, but you have special exemptions? Has there been discussion on that point?
Special exemptions for transmission?
From a NEPA perspective.
From a NEPA perspective. So right away, the DOE reformed the NEPA process and regulations so that the studies would not only be much shorter, but just that they would be more reasonable as well. So reforming the process in itself within the regulation, I think, was well within our power, and that's to speed that up. And then we have the SCIT program, which also looks to come up with those processes. And the average time for doing the process is about 4 years. And so we're on the hook. It's a key performance metric for us to ensure that it's less than 2 years after that. So that still seems long, but I think those of you who've been in this space for a while, 2 years might be pretty reasonable. So I'd say in my experience, we keep passing legislation and giving new authorities, and there's just a lot of those out there that have worked and maybe not worked so much in those years. It's really the people that are executing on that. So I think with the right leadership and the program managers that are working it, and I can promise you that Marina, who's leading up our transmission group, definitely has fire in the belly and is looking to get things done as quickly as possible in the right way and in the most transparent way. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for being here. So I'm Manish Jain from Sargent Plenty. So I know building the transmission is the need of the hour, but just curious about, like, is there any talk around in the DOE to talk about the supply chain? I think building transmission, but the supply chain is one of the big issues. We're getting those breakers, and you need to build the transmission, you need the equipment. What is DOE doing around to build the supply chain or improve the supply chain?
Oh yeah, that's top of mind. That's one of our top major challenges. And we were recently given 2 different authorities that we're trying to sort out. So I'd love to hear from all of you before we move out on it. So there's $375 million that Congress gave us. They said it's a one-time deal this year. So we're trying to figure out how to spend that to help the supply chain. That one is focused on grid components. So is it transformers? Is it is it the substitution for materials? Can it be how they, it's not a lot of money, so you can't like build a whole new plant with that. But that is one tool. The president just signed the Defense Production Act. And so that's covering 3 different pillars, and that will also contribute to the supply chain. So there's capacity building in supply chain, and then there's also trying to secure the supply chain as well. So we have programs that try to test test for how are these components going to work through their engineering life cycle to make sure that they are secure and robust and reliable. So supply chain is definitely one of our top priorities. So thanks for asking.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your remarks, particularly on siting reform, permitting reform. And I wanted to ask you specifically regarding SciTap. I looked at your bio. I know you're a person that gets things done, and you have a history for that. I'm sure when you embarked on the SciTap initiative, you identified the primary risks for success, and I wonder if you could share some of the mitigation that you put into place to alleviate those risks. I really appreciate it.
Oh, sure. I'd say the number one risk is communicating with the people who are involved early and often. The staff told me the surest way to kill a transmission project is to have the Department of Energy put in the Federal Register notice that you've applied for a permit. Like, make sure you communicate first. So that is, to me, the biggest risk. And it pretty much is always going to be this perpetual problem, the not in my backyard folks. So that communicate early and often is the biggest thing. And then really take the time to do the planning up front. It is so complicated. There are so many stakeholders. And we've mapped out that process. But sometimes there's some things we don't know. So it's good to be as open and transparent as possible at the very beginning, because you certainly don't want to have something come up at the end that goes, ooh, whoopsie, we forgot to do this up front. So communication and planning and transparency, I think, are the biggest risks.
Thank you. Really, really interesting discussion. Appreciate it. Richard Buqueño from Actolon Services. My question is really around sort of what you see in the space of actually working with the utilities. And so from your perspective, where do you see utilities are struggling most to translate federal funding and policy into executable transmission projects? And where can external partners, get involved in that process?
Oh, sure. I think where they're struggling the most is having more certainty and where that demand is going to be. Like I mentioned, the demand growth that NERC is seeing, and we put out a resource adequacy report, and just trying to nail down what is that realistic number for growth over the next 10 years. And it just keeps shifting. And then where is it going to go? Because there's a lot of, the data centers are like, well, I'm just going to apply in these 5 different areas, and whichever one arrives first or lets me connect first, they can do that. I think we're working on that. We have a large load group that meets with vendors and utilities. I think that is a great forum because there's so much you can't do just over email and phone, but in a room all together, you can have better dialogue and more trust on what the reality of the situation is. So I think it's that uncertainty that is really being a struggle. I think there's some in the technology play, like how do you really weigh the reliability and affordability benefits? I think the affordability pressure is really strong. You hear about that all the time. And so how do we come up with the most cost-effective solutions in the speed that we need it? It's hard to, sometimes speed doesn't mean lower cost, right? It's usually up there. And then there's the supply chain issues as well. That's a real, I'd say that's a real wicked problem that we're all struggling to figure out. Does that help? Okay.
I get to do another one. So you covered a real broad range of topics in your opening remarks, and I thought that was really interesting. And one of the things that really caught my attention was you were talking about the Spark program that you have. Wires relatively recently did a paper on different advanced transmission technologies, kind of a survey, and what some of the challenges and benefits are associated with it. I'm curious, because you said it applies to proven proven advanced technologies, right? And I'm curious as to how you define advanced technologies, because some view them in a fairly narrow scope, others more broadly. We were trying to articulate something that would be a broader approach on the transmission front. I'm just curious as to how DOE looks at the category of advanced technologies for that program.
Well, I'd say we'll have to, for the precise definition, I would say definitely go to our website to get that. But I think it is a rather broad definition. I mean, advanced conductors, you know, you have the aluminum and the carbon core. But I think it's going to be more weighed on what are the impacts to the grid. So it can be a solution that it's not just the reconductoring, but the power flow controls and whatever the system solution is, although that is the priority, and the priority is time. So will the impact occur within the next, you know, few years? Like, it takes a couple years to build it, right? So I guess just because it's an open funding opportunity, I would say for the precise definition, I would look to that to get that. Okay, sorry. Thank you.
I probably don't need a blank. The question is, I am working on the SPARK program right now. Mm-hmm. And some of the criteria is existing transmission lines, use what you have. I think it's one of the major ones because it is the quickest path to move forward. But like Larry said, what is that new technology? What is expected from the vendor, my side of the business, to achieve what you want? So what are your rules and regulations? What's your process to look into what qualifies for SPARK?
What can provide the most number of megawatts you can put through the grid? Can it alleviate congestion? And is the cost, what is the cost going to be? Can it lower costs for consumers? So those are the fundamentals of the SPARK. That's what we're looking for.
And is your audience the IOU or the developer?
I think it's both. Like, if you look at the qualifications, and again, I'll say, please look at the website. But yes, it's really, and there are teams that can be built. It doesn't have to be like a single entity. But it's pretty important. I know that we had the concept papers come in, and the interest was like orders of magnitude more than the funding that we have. And so we will be looking at part of the proposal process. We'll be demonstrating what you estimate those impacts to be. So we will be looking at that, and we'll be using our own modeling capabilities and other paths to try to validate what those estimates are. So we're really looking forward to it because we're going to be able to map out, like, what is the state of the grid? How is the SPARK NOFO, once we get all these proposals in, going to advance the capability of the grid? And then we'll try to map it out beyond that to see, with future opportunities, what is left to do, because I know there's going to be a lot. So thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here and appreciate all the help, actually good help. I had a question about what do you think we can do to help? I've heard actually 4 things in your other answers to questions. You know, gain some certainty around the amount of demand, early planning, early communication and outreach, and then also manage the supply chain. Are there other activities that you think the transmission owners and builders should be doing to help advance transmission?
Oh, sure. Thank you for asking that. How can you engage? Well, knowledge and knowledge transfer is key. So really telling us what your pain points are, because if we have such limited funding, and so what are the targeted, the priority solutions that we need to have? Participate in some of the different programs that we have as well, because again, if we keep the dialogue going, then we can see how where we are today and where we're moving forward to. If you have any studies or data, I think that is really important too, because I think we can share that with the states as we do our technical assistance. We can provide, like right now we're doing there's this program called Voices of Experience, And that mainly focuses on the utility, but we're incorporating the data centers and the regulators as well to say, what has been our experience in powering up these data centers? What have we learned in order to lower costs and go faster? So participating in what you've actually experienced, what you've observed as you've deployed these technologies, because that's the way we move faster. So we don't repeat any of the unfortunate lessons that we've learned, but we can also apply the best practices. And that sharing is going to help the whole country move faster.
Any other questions? This is your chance. So.
I moved over here to get this side to ask more questions. Okay. All right.
Okay, well, join me in thanking the Assistant Secretary.